Hello and welcome to Access Asia. This week, a special edition on the crisis in Sri Lanka. The government has no money, the stores have no food, and the people have no patience. Shortages of essentials making daily life a struggle. But with political uncertainty ahead, the situation could get worse before it gets better. We'll speak to our correspondent and also meet some of the key protesters. First, as Sri Lanka's protest movement marked 100 days since it first began, the people proudly and defiantly said their fight is not over. Sadly, for them, they are right. In addition to political uncertainty, the country faces a long list of problems, years of mismanagement along with external shocks. The coronavirus pandemic, for one, battered the tourism industry, and the war in Ukraine contributed to soaring inflation. On the ground, there are long queues for food and fuel. Andy Hillier has more.
It was something unthinkable not long ago. But Milton Pereira and his family are now getting used to going hungry.
It's very difficult to live. Even a loaf of bread is expensive. We have 6 children in the family. We have to skip meals. If we take one meal, we skip another. It's very difficult.
According to the World Food Programme, Milton's case has become the new norm for millions of people across Sri Lanka. It says 1/5 of the population needs aid, while other families are eating far less to make ends meet.
We can only buy about 250 grams of fish, and sometimes that is only one fish. We have to cut it into many small pieces so everyone in the family can eat. Because we don't have much money, sometimes we give the fish to the children, and we only eat gravy.
Rampant inflation is sending food prices spiralling to record highs. Sri Lanka's crippling fuel shortage is also a big factor driving the hunger crisis. With petrol stations running dry, the cost of transporting food has also gone up. And it's led to scenes like this, queues of motorists lining up for days with no guarantee of a refill.
From day before yesterday, I've been in the queue to get the petrol to my car. Earlier it was in another station. It all got finished. Then from yesterday 8 p.m. I'm here in the queue.
As the queues get longer, patience is wearing thin. At the pumps, it's now common to see armed guards keeping watch as petrol becomes more precious than ever.
For more, let's speak to Navodita Kumari in Colombo. Hello to you, Navodita. When we say long queues, we don't just mean hours. These queues can be up to days long. How are people managing that?
Yeah, exactly. Right now we are at one of South Colombo's petrol stations, and people here told us that the minimum waiting time here is 4 days. And they also told us the family members are organizing their day according to these queues. Earlier at another petrol station, we met a young woman who told us that she and her husband had to wait for 10 long days, day and night, in fact, to get petrol. And she was waiting during the day, and her husband would take turn at night, and after 10 days of waiting, they just got 20 liters of petrol, enough for only 4 days. So you can imagine how difficult her life and lives of most of the people in Sri Lanka is right now.
Yeah, it's a major disruption to anyone's daily routine. Navodita, what are some of the other key shortages in Sri Lanka?
So apart from food and fuel, drugs for life-threatening diseases like cancer and heart elements are also in short supply across hospitals in Sri Lanka. In fact, some common medicines like paracetamol or glucose strip to measure the blood sugar level are also not available, and rabies shots, for example, are also not available, because of which at least a dozen people have lost their lives in the last few days. And that's why another thing which is impacting women and children in Sri Lanka right now is that the government since March has stopped some free distribution program under which they were distributing vitamins and nutritious food for expecting mothers and infants. On top of that, baby formula is also in short supply and their prices have tripled. So the situation is so dire that some women have told us they don't even want to have babies because they can't afford to take care of them.
It's really tragic, Navodita. I mean, how are these effects reverberating across society? Who is most impacted?
This crisis has badly affected the lower and middle income groups, which compromises more than 60% of the population. They are not able to take the shock of this surging prices and economic crisis. For example, a kilo of rice, which was at 90 rupees, Sri Lankan rupees, is now at 300. And the petrol, which was at 135 rupees, is now Sri Lankan rupees 450. And so they are not able to afford these things. On top of that, many have lost their jobs or losing their incomes waiting in these lines. On the other hand, higher income group are somehow able to manage this crisis, and many of them in fact have moved out of the country because of the crisis.
All right, Navodita, thank you very much. Navodita Kumari reporting from Colombo. And earlier, she was telling us about other queues in the country as well, to get passports. While the youth led the protest movement, with the country's uncertain path ahead, some young adults are trying to go overseas to find work or resume studies. Take a look.
This is the ground zero for the recent protest in Sri Lanka. It's called the Gotagogama village, named after former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. For over 100 days, the protesters have been camping here at Golface in the heart of Colombo. This movement is led by young people between the ages of 20 and 30, like Thisara.
At first, I didn't come here to stay. I just wanted to visit the place. And when I saw the sacrifices made by the people here, it moved me, and I decided to stay to help them out.
For Thisara, there is no other way to secure his future than to join this movement.
If you can't fulfill your dreams here at the moment, it's best to migrate to another country. I would advise young people to go if they have the means, but I can't go. I don't have the money.
For tens of thousands of desperate young Sri Lankans, the only option to escape the rising prices and unemployment is to leave the country. At the passport office in Colombo, every day new applicants join the queue.
I have been waiting for 3 days. I really want to go abroad.
Most of my friends are trying to go to Dubai or Kuwait for housekeeping and cleaning jobs.
Just outside Colombo, we meet 26-year-old software engineer Manoj. He makes 400 euros a month, which was a high salary until the economic crisis hit. Now he's looking for a job in Singapore.
If I go abroad, I won't be able to take my family right away. But I can send money to them so that they can survive.
According to government reports, over 320,000 Sri Lankans applied for passports in the past 6 months. There were only 200,000 in 2020.
So as we've been saying, the protests began months ago, but in June, the movement was flagging. Here's a look at a few activists and how they managed to breathe fresh life back into it.
In June, a popular playwright started meeting with a few dozen activists at a tent camp in Colombo. The group, known as The Struggle, also included a Catholic priest and a digital strategist.
We needed somehow to do something that will inspire the people of Sri Lanka to come out again, to show their rejection of this system.
Their aim? To remove the president and key officials of the Rajapaksa family.
We nudged the people in the right direction. People were already determined, they were already expecting something, and they were willing to commit themselves to this outcome.
They chose to act on the 9th of July, with hundreds of thousands occupying Colombo, And crowds also storming the president's office and entering the prime minister's official residence. Their plan exceeded expectations, harnessing widespread anger across the country amid the worst economic crisis in decades.
We were able to network all the protest grounds of Sri Lanka, north, south, west, east, and all the provinces, districts and areas of Sri Lanka where these protests were happening. We had a network system.
Just hours later, both leaders announced they would resign to allow an all-party interim government to take over.
Well, that's it for this special edition. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.